Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be doing a slightly shortened review of the San Martin SN0111G. Don't confuse this with the titanium version. They sell this exact watch in grade 5 titanium. That is the SN0111T, so this is the G version. So I was able to get my hands on this by doing a favor for a fellow follower. He purchased this watch pre-owned from watchdives.com. I don't know if you guys knew that. Watchdives does have a pre-owned section. I will leave that link down in the video description. You can get some pretty good deals on this. I believe he paid $140 for it. So they weren't able to send to his address for some reason. I think it's because he's in Hawaii, and this is only for the continental U.S. So Hawaii and Alaska are out of luck. But I can send it and forward it to him. So I said I would do that. I also said, hey, by the way, can I review it? He said, absolutely. So here we are. But because this is another user's watch, I'm going to skip the strap show. I don't want to put any extra scratches on this watch or anything like that. So it's a black diver. It's going to look good on anything, right? So the retail price for this watch is $239 US. That's before any taxes, sales, coupons, VAT, anything like that. I'll be linking both watchdives.com as well as the official San Martin store and AliExpress. Those will both be down in the video description. Those are both affiliate links if you use those links. You guys aren't paying any extra. You just help the channel out a little bit by earning me a little bit of commission on the sale. So I really do appreciate it. This watch only comes in black, but you do have different dial and hand options. So you can get this with the traditional Mercedes handset or the Sword handset. I believe you can also get a square indices and the snowflake handset. So just keep that in mind when you're about to purchase. The watch case on this version is 316L stainless steel, as well as the bracelet has a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, has a screw down crown, screw down case back, 300 meters of claimed water resistance. There is Swiss BGW9 Lume on the dial and the hands, and the watch is powered by the Seiko NH35 automatic movement. So I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time. I said we get right into the full review, but before we do a quick wrist check today. Just got this one in a few days ago. This is the Tandorio SKX or SSK GMT. Got it for right around $100. This one will be on the channel very soon. I think it's a pretty awesome deal for $100. Yeah, it looks great, feels great, and yeah, it's $100. Now let's get to the dimensions. We got a bezel diameter of 39.9 millimeters. The case is just a little bit bigger than that, but not much. Case thickness of 13.2 millimeters. Got 20 millimeter lug width. Lug tip to lug tip of 47.3 millimeters. The female end links, unusual, but we have a total length of 49.7 millimeters. And sized up for my 7.5-inch wrist. It weighs 152 grams. So it's your kind of typical size, 40 millimeters by just over 47, 13.2 millimeters thick. I think it wears a lot nicer than that. It is a flat case, as you can see here, but I do think it wears pretty good. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5-inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears just as you would expect. I have plenty of these watches on the channel, and they all kind of wear the same. This one wears a little bit better just because of the female end links. The case back does sink into the wrist nicely, so that thickness doesn't wear as thick as it sounds on paper. So yeah, pretty happy with the way this thing wears. It is a very flat case, but I do like the way that it wears. I love the bezel on this thing, really, really shiny, as well as the crystal in the dial. It's a very reflective watch, but I think they did pretty much all they could. Maybe a little bit more AR coating would help, but yeah, you can definitely read the watch still. It's never been a problem for me. It's just, especially under this oak tree, it really kind of emphasizes the reflection. So it looks a lot worse here than it does in most situations. And popping out into some direct sunlight here, you can see really, really nice polishing on the chamfers there. Nice brushing on the bracelet as well. Yeah, I mean, this thing, it just looks really good. There you can see direct sunlight. No real issue at all. I think it works pretty good. And definitely it looks a lot better here than it does under that oak tree. So, like I mentioned, I'm not going to be doing any strap shows. This thing should look great on pretty much anything. 20 millimeter lugs means you're going to have no trouble finding straps, and everything's going to look good on this thing. So, yeah, strap out. All right, let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case finishing on this. Case finishing is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces, and they, as usual from San Martin, did an excellent job. You have a vertical brushing on the tops of the lugs here, nice and fine. I see no issues with that. It's just, they always do a really nice job on these surfaces. Really happy with that. Flipping it to the case sides here, you have a horizontal brushing, and again, really nice and fine and consistent, and I am super happy with that. Splitting those two surfaces, you have a nice polished chamfer here, and again, nicely done. You know, I keep saying this from St. Martin, they have some of the most crisp finishing I've seen on watches, and that's not just you know, at this $300 price range that goes up to $1,000. So I mean, they're right up there with the case finishing of like a Christopher Ward. My new Laurier is just as nice as this one. So yeah, I mean, they just do an excellent job at the price point. That's kind of consistent through all of their watches. Flipping it to the crown side here, you do have a signed screw down crown, nicely tucked into those polished crown guards there. And again, just everything is nice and smooth. Really, really happy with that. Flipping it to the case back here, you can see you have your typical case back, a vertical brushing here and circular brushing everywhere else. Kind of got that coin edge, which I'm never a fan of, but I've gotten used to it and I've got the tools to get that off, so it's not a huge deal for me. But definitely just some simple notches to get a tool in there would be a whole lot nicer in my opinion. Circular brushing on the bottom of the case. This bottom edge here is pretty sharp, I'll say that. I really wish St. Martin would, you know, spend a little bit of time, just put a super tiny chamfer on this bottom edge here. It would make the watch appear thinner, and it would also be a lot softer on the wrist. So this one, I haven't worn it too much, but you know, I don't expect it to bother me too much. I've had watches from St. Martin in the past with a sharp bottom edge here. They don't bother me, but yeah, this one feels pretty sharp. All right, let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So the bezel is actually really nicely done. You have a ceramic bezel insert. All these numbers, they aren't white painted. I don't know if you can see it or not. Hopefully in the macro you can see it, but it's kind of a shimmery, silvery white. It looks really, really good in my opinion. And yeah, I think they did a nice job of that. So it's not a fully loomed bezel, which I know some people will complain about, but it does have the lume pip at the 12 o'clock, and that's really all you need. But otherwise, really nicely done. The paint filling, the engravings are just razor sharp. It's excellent. I've got no issues with it at all. The bezel itself, it's a stainless steel bezel, mixture of brushed and polished as well. You have a circular brushing on the tops of the surface there. You have a circular brushing on the sides as well, and then you've got the polished scallops in the bezel there. Really nicely done. You can see it is a sloped bezel insert. You got plenty of grip on this thing, and you don't really need it. The resistance is perfect. You have a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Just listen to these clicks. Oh, it's so nice. Nice and smooth and clicky all at the same time. Yeah, it's really nicely done. You can see the alignment there is pretty good, but you can, once you hear that click and just leave it, you're fine. But you can rock this thing back just a little bit. So that's just something to note. You know, I've seen that on a couple other watches as well, doing a review of this thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think they just make the one click. Oh, that's it right there. It's kind of hard to show it on camera. But yeah, once you hear the one click into the 12 o'clock position, just leave it there and it's fine. And when it is there, it's pretty much locked in place. There's just a little bit of play, but there's not a whole lot of play on this thing. It's a nice bezel. It's very fidgetable. I like playing with the bezel. It sounds good. It feels good. And it looks really good. I'm overall pretty satisfied with the bezel on this thing. All right, let's talk about the crystal on this thing. We will test it for sapphire first. You can see there it is positive for sapphire. So it is a double dome piece of sapphire crystal. It's a very slight double dome, as you can see there. Ever so slight. I almost didn't notice it at first. There is some blue anti-reflective coating on the underside. It does a pretty good job of cutting down on reflections. This is just a very reflective watch. You got a shiny bezel with a reflective crystal and a shiny dial as well. So there's a lot of bling happening, I want to say. But yeah, I think the crystal does a pretty good job of keeping the reflections at bay. It still struggles under that oak tree outside that you saw earlier. But yeah, for the most part, I've got no complaints with the crystal. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, let's get real close and we'll talk about the dial on this thing. And the dial is done really, really nice. It's a nice, inky, glossy black dial. It looks fantastic. It looks really, really good. I've got zero complaints with it. Applied indices at all the hour markers. Those are done excellent as always from St. Martin. Nice and thick borders, even borders all the way across. You know, flat lume plots. They just did a very nice job with it. The color match between the lume on the dial and the hands, pretty much spot on in the daytime. The handset that they used, really nicely sized in my opinion. Nice and bold sword handset. You've got your arrow tip on the second hand there, sweeping along. Everything is done really nicely. You have your applied St. Martin hex logo. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm kind of indifferent to it, doesn't bother me. You got your automatic 300 meters there, and then a simple minute track printed around the outside. Everything is done really nice. Everything is aligned nicely. I see zero issues on this thing. The lume is excellent. I'm going to pop up a lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches that I consider to have some of the better lume in my collection. And it definitely, you can see here, it just holds its own. It even beats them in, for the most part. I mean, really good lume on this watch. I'm very happy with it. It lasts all night long. All right, so let's talk about the movement on this thing. So the movement is the Seiko NH35. It's automatic dual directional winding rotor. It hacks, hand winds, 21,600 beats per hour, about 40 hours of power reserve. It does everything you need it to do. It's cheap, it's reliable, it's accurate. This one is running plus 3 seconds a day for me on my little time grapher shot. I didn't get a screenshot for you, but it's running really good. So very happy with that. Yeah, I don't know what I can say about this movement that you haven't heard from me or somebody else before. It's a great movement. I've got zero issues with it. It does everything you need it to do. If you ever need to replace it, if you ever need to work on it, they're simple to work on. They are cheap to replace. They're great. Zero complaints with it. If I had to choose one movement to use for the rest of my life in any watch, I would use the NH35. The movement is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown here. So you unscrew it, really nice, smooth screw in and screw out action. You do have a gasket visible there as well that aids in the 300 meters of water resistance. This first position is your hand winding. The crown, it's nice and solid feeling. Pull it out to the first position. There is a ghost date position back there, and I can hear it clicking around. So there is a date wheel behind the dial. Not a huge deal for me. Pull it out to the third position. That hacks the movement. Nice solid feeling on the crown. No issues at all. Again, nice and solid. Pushing it in starts up the second hand right away, just as you would expect. Everything functions just as it should. I've got no complaints with the crown, got no complaints with the movement either. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So you're going to have to take this with a grain of salt. The bracelet came, it was a little bit different than original. I'm using a clasp. This is the clasp that comes with the watch. This one came on a different clasp, and it also has some funny brushing on the sides. So they did some repair to it. So yeah, brushing and the finishing of this bracelet might not be up to par, but this is the same bracelet they've had on pretty much every watch. You have solid links, solid end links. It's a 20 millimeter bracelet, and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. You have a nice brushed finish on the top surface here. Everything looks really good. You have polishing on the sides, screw pins for sizing. Yeah, this bracelet is great. Just like all their other ones, it gets a little boring talking about it because they're all really good and they're all the same. You have solid female end links here. The one thing I did notice is that these female end links, they don't pivot down all the way. Kind of unusual. I'm not really sure why they don't do that, but that's why you got that little extra, you know, about 2 or 3 millimeters on the total length of this thing. Yeah, really unusual. I'm not really sure why they did that, but it doesn't affect me at all. It might affect someone with a really small wrist. I'm not really sure. Just something to note. And I haven't seen anyone else mention that as far as the reviews go. So yeah, just an unusual thing. I don't know why it's like that. But end link fitment is fine. End link curve, you know, follows the case curvature nicely as well. So yeah, I think the bracelet overall is really good. And this one does come with your on the fly clasp. So nice and big and long clasp. It kind of balances out the watch head in this one. I've got no complaints with the clasp on this thing as far as size goes. Really easy to use. You push this in and that allows you to ratchet out, and then you can just slide it in when it's on the wrist. So usually when I get this thing, I slide it all the way out, put it on the wrist, and then tighten it up until I'm happy with where it is, and it just kind of locks in place there until you press that button. So really satisfied with the clasp on this thing. Yeah, I've got no complaints with it at all. It looks really good. It functions really good. The finishing on it is very nice as well. Brushed on the top, brushed on the sides with a nice polished chamfer. So it flows really nice with this case style here. Yeah, I've got no complaints with it. I do think that they kind of honed these inside edges of the bracelet. I think they're starting to listen to us there. It just feels a little bit softer than some of my other ones. So that's nice to see as well. But yeah, I've got no major complaints with the bracelet on this thing. It's really good. So there you go, guys. That is the St. Martin SN0111G. This is not the titanium. This is all stainless steel. I think it looked great. I love this bezel insert, that fully graduated bezel insert. The handset on this thing, I was never a big fan of sword hands until I finally got it in hand. I think they look really good on this watch. And I think the watch in general looks excellent. Very good finishing, good crystal, killer lume, good bezel action, awesome clasp. I think you're going to be really happy with this one. I think it looks really good. So yeah, thank you to the guy who sent this over to me, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.